and you have all the training behind you as a pilot, so you will understand the aeronautical side and the limitations of a plane when it's flying. And one of the things we come across an awful lot of the time, and it kind of happened last night on the Late Late Show, everybody has an opinion, and I don't like saying this, but basically opinions are like arseholes, everybody has one. But basically the way we look at it, and we've said it before on the radio show, is that an opinion is only valid if it's based on proper research. If somebody has an opinion and there's no research or foundation to it, it's ignorance. How did you feel last night with what was said with these people in the audience? I mean, they were obviously put there for a reason. How did you feel when they turned around and said you were having to go with the Jewish people and all this? So how did you feel about that?
Well, it's a common tactic that is deployed to try and steer people away from the truth and to try and marginalise truth seekers. You know, it's a character assassination, basically. When they cannot deal and properly debate the facts, they resort to ad hominem attacks, whether it's calling the truth seekers, truth disseminators nut jobs, conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hat merchants, and worse, anti-Semitic. And that's what came up last night, and very disappointing, because if you notice when the interview took place, I was asked for all my views first, and then there was a break as I went over to Monckton, and this was giving the plant lots of time to formulate his answers to what I'd said. And he didn't come back on anything except about what NIST had basically put together, which NIST have long been discredited in relation to their findings on 9/11. And when you hadn't got the ability to actually come back at me on any of the facts that I'd given, you resorted to a horrible cheap tactic of linking me in with anti-Semitism. Now, anyone who knows me knows that there is not an anti-Semitic bone in my body. So it was cheap, it was a pathetic attack, and I had it out with him. And he came up and he apologised afterwards, and I asked him, you look me in the eye and you tell me seriously, do you believe the official story of 9/11? And Harry Brown says to me, there are holes in it. I said, there are huge holes in it.
It doesn't mean that we have the answers to what happened, but we know what didn't happen. And that's the 9/11 report, which they released, which had so many holes in it.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So it mightn't be the case that we have all the answers as to exactly what happened, but we know what didn't happen.
Exactly.
And I've kind of moved on from 9/11 because I know that it was an inside job.
Yeah.
I mean,
it
definitely, yeah. It's problem reaction solution is what they call the Hegelian principle, which is
dialectic.
Yeah, basically. Now, just kind of changing the subject a little bit.
I apologise for cursing there.
That's okay. Sometimes, sometimes it gets to us, you know, that, you know, you've done the research and people come on and they have this little bit of knowledge, a small bit of knowledge, and they're basing the argument on this little piece of knowledge without actually seeing the bigger picture. And it is annoying. It's very frustrating. I've come across it. Steve has come across it as well. Trying to talk to people. My approach now, because I have kind of background in psychology, so I actually don't argue the point really with people anymore.
Yeah.
I approach it from a psychological point of view. Number one, I can gauge somebody's intelligence by the question I ask them. Yeah. So I'll know exactly what way they think before I even go down that road. Yeah. So based on that, I'll know whether to go down that road or not. And then there's a great saying, condemnation without investigation
is the height of ignorance.
Exactly.
Condemnation without investigation, yeah.
Height of ignorance.
I say condemnation and dismissal is without proper investigation is the height of ignorance. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. But another good tactic, I suppose, if you're trying to get the truth across to people, is to ask them questions instead of making statements.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, I'm learning as I go along. But that's what we have to deal with, you see. And I think it was very obvious that the state broadcaster did not want my views to be properly known to the Irish people. And I believe that I've got something to say. And I suppose I would have been naive to have thought that I would have been given a free ride by RTE. I knew that was not going to happen. But I think it backfired on them last night. I really do. I think it backfired. Because people are wondering, what is it that he wanted to say that they wouldn't let him speak about? And what's that guy talking about anti-Semitism? Sure, Corr's not anti-Semitic. So, you know, I'd say it woke up quite a few people. It crashed my website. Crashed my website last night. There were so many people on it.
Well, we'll check out Facebook as well, RT. Yeah. Just changing the subject a little bit. We had Ted Gunderson on the show last week. Ted is a retired head of FBI Los Angeles. He had 700 people under him. He had a budget of 22 million. And he went through his experiences being in the FBI, the 2 contracts that they had out on his life. But what was really of interest was the fact that Ted had come across satanic cults and people in Hollywood, sports stars, actors, in the political arena who were actually abusing children. Now, when we went to your show in Drogheda, with yourself and Ian was doing the show, you didn't go into any detail. You just kind of showed people a few things and then let them think for themselves. Have you done any more research into this area at all? Have you found out anything, or is it just something that you're just breezing over and you haven't really looked into?
I think that any researcher who goes down the road of, you know, the same road that I've gone and many others have gone, inevitably come up against something we call the occult. And it's difficult to try and gain a proper understanding of what is going on, but it certainly appears to be the case that the elite are deeply into the occult. There was footage that was taken from a place called Bohemian Grove in Northern California, and somebody got in with a camera and took this footage, and there was footage taken of a bizarre ritual, a bizarre ceremony, starting off at the top of a 2-week event, which was basically, they describe as fun and frolics, fun and games for the elite. Bear in mind, you've got the richest, wealthiest, most powerful, most influential people in the world, from elite bankers to royalty to heads of state, oligarchs, titans of industry, arriving here for 2 weeks of the year. It starts off with this very, very bizarre ritual, which they call the cremation of care ritual. Cremation of care. Just think about those words when you think that our so-called leaders are attending something like that. And on it, it starts off, there are people on the stage dressed up in kind of Ku Klux Klan outfits, red, white and black outfits, and they have a mock human sacrifice underneath a 40-foot owl called Moloch. Very, very, very bizarre stuff. Like this ancient kind of Babylonian, Luciferian type ritual.
Not something you'd expect our presidents and businessmen to be doing, really.
No, certainly. It doesn't look very Buddhist, it doesn't look very Christian. So you wonder what is going on there. And then I noticed, and I touched on this in my presentation, that you find a lot of heads of state and leaders, particularly George Bush, making a certain sign with his hand. And you could interpret this sign in a different way, or misinterpret it perhaps, but when the amount of people that are doing this, from Obama, Cheney, to Berlusconi, to Sarkozy, to the heads of McDonald's, to royalty, making this particular sign, I was wondering, what the hell is this? And I kept coming across information on this. They call it basically the Mano Cornuto, or the devil's horn sign. And when you look in the Satanic Bible, it says that this sign is a recognition of our allegiance. This sign is a recognition between our recognition or allegiance. This sign is a recognition of allegiance between members of Satanism or other unholy groups. And then you start piecing this together, and you look at biblical prophecy, and you look at revelations and scripture and all of this, and the whole thing starts to correlate. And I've noticed that in my presentations that I've done around the country, I've got lots of people coming up that have been approaching this information from a completely different angle, from scripture and biblical prophecy, and from the secrets of Fatima and all of this. And there seems to be something to it. I present a little bit of this information. I let people make up their own minds as to what it is. But there are reports that have come out from various different whistleblowers that have been victims of Monarch or MK Ultra mind control program, who said that they had to partake in rituals, in horrific rituals, involving unspeakable stuff going on. And there's quite a number of them. When you see that the information is correlating between them, it's absolutely shocking. So,
well, this politician, or this senator in Arizona, apparently when David was on the show, David Wilcox, he actually said that that young chap who did the shooting, was actually MK Ultra. He was actually mind control. If you watch his videos, you can see how controlled he is, and that she was part of a disclosure group on information, and she's either her brother-in-law or her brother or one of her family members was an astronaut, and because she was part of this group, they wanted to take her out, so they're getting desperate, because the net is closing in. This is what David was saying, and they're openly beginning to do things because they're getting desperate. So where I'm kind of leading to this would be to, in the next 2 years, because we know, we spoke to Ian about 2012 and all that, and people have ideas what's going to happen, and Ian was talking about the redundant DNA that might be activated. David Wilcox said about redundant DNA being activated as well. With let's look first at the current economic climate at the moment, the way it is with the government, and then we'll look further down the line to more the 2012 and just get your opinion on that. So let's start with the current climate. Brian Cowan, we've just heard, has resigned. Fantastic. He's staying on as Taoiseach. So he's a dictator.
You couldn't write this stuff.
I know, you couldn't write it. So what would you say to people about the current situation? We know the election's coming up. There's 4 parties there: Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour and Sinn Féin. Give us your views on what you think people should be in, because there's
Fianna Fáil are gone. You've got the rats all deserting the sinking ship.
Yeah.
I think it is very obvious to the people that, and it is a massive understatement to say that Fianna Fáil government were not on the side of the Irish people. That's a huge understatement. I believe that they're guilty of treason. I believe that they're traitors for what they've done. Also, there are individuals within previous government who gifted to Royal Dutch Shell our gas and oil off the west coast of this country. They need to be held account for what they've done. We are too nice, probably, as a nation, and we're acting in a very subdued manner. I know people are angry and they're afraid, and we need to take back power. It's all about the decentralisation of power. Power has to be put back into the hands of the people, because it's very obvious that the government has failed. The Irish government has failed, and I think we're going to make a huge mistake if we fall into the fake left-right paradigm trap and vote for Fine Gael, because they are going to carry the EU torch. They're going to continue with the same agenda. And the same with Labour. Now, I am hoping that it's going to be a different case with Sinn Féin. I don't agree with Sinn Féin on everything, but I've listened to the speech that Pierce Doherty gave in the Dáil on Budget Day, and he is, I couldn't disagree with anything that he said. I thought that he told the truth, even down to the natural resources, everything, you know. And certainly in my own hometown of Dundalk, if there's one party that appears to have been genuinely on the side of the Irish people, it is of the people of Louth, it has been Sinn Féin again, in terms of doing their damn best to get the brain-numbing, sterility-causing, cancer-fueling